There was someone seen sitting in a rocking chair, facing the window and turning his head slightly. Then in the library, there was an old man who was the librarian and ran the place, suddenly chased by a man named Bennett who wanted to collect a debt from him. Bennett almost kills him, but the librarian offers a unique book worth millions that is said to be very unique and difficult to obtain. Bennett is intrigued by it and asks the librarian for more information about the book. But after he got the information, Bennett still killed him by cutting his throat with a knife. After the librarian was killed, Bennett left the library and entered the car driven by his partner. Bennett believes the librarian's information about the book, which is said to be located in the Ravenmont area, but Bennett's partner said that the place was cursed. Bennett didn't care. He still wanted to go there and look for a book called Books of Blood. When the car driven by Bennett's companion drove Shirley to the mentioned location, the dead librarian was seen smiling. His smile was eerie, horrifying, as if it was a sign that something terrible was about to happen. Books of Blood contains a story about Jenna. She is a young college student who is unhappy, unable to enjoy her life. Even after her mother tried many things and made great efforts to make her daughter happy again, Jenna still didn't seem happy. Jenna had a mental breakdown. Her mother had given her access to a psychiatrist named Dr. Lerner. She thought that maybe she would get a little better, but Jenna refused his treatment. She stopped taking her medication without any supervision. Jenna said that she didn't like taking her medication because it would just make her feel tired and have headaches all the time. Her mom kept insisting that Jenna take her medication, but she was fed up and refused. Until finally one night when Jenna was in the kitchen, she thought of running away. After robbing her own mother by breaking into the safe and taking several wads of money, Jenna went to the nearest bus station to buy a ticket to Los Angeles. Jenna's overly sensitive hearing always made her seem agitated. She tries to distract herself by sketching in her book, but it didn't seem to work. She started hallucinating and fidgeting on her own. Jenna believed that a horrible man had been following her since she was at the terminal. Jenna decided to get off the bus and went to a cafe that had a computer she could access. Jenna searched for nearby lodgings and found a house that looked comfortable to her, which belonged to an old couple named Ellie and Sam. She met again the man she had almost run over at the cafe, Jevin, a young man who was also staying there. The two of them had a brief conversation. Jenna indirectly opened up about her past, about her ex-boyfriend who had taken his own life, and about her heightened sensitivity to sound. Towards the end of the night, and when they were about to go to bed, Jenna and Jevin exchanged contact before going to their respective rooms. Jenna could still hear the scratching on the wall that bothered her so much. At exactly midnight, Jenna had a nightmare first about her mother, then about Jevin. She then realized it was all just a dream, including the couple Sam and Ellie and the cockroach hallucination. Jenna woke up in the morning feeling fine. Still slightly disoriented, Jenna chatted briefly with Sam and Ellie before heading to the cafe to meet up with Jevin, who said he wanted to explore the university. While waiting, Jenna saw the old man who had followed her at the terminal appear in front of the cafe. Jenna panicked and immediately ran back to the inn. Ellie, seeing Jenna's anxiety, calms her down and invites her to help with the gardening. Jenna then listens to Ellie talk about her family. Her son died, leaving behind a daughter, Emma Shiloh, who gave her 2 grandchildren. Jenna feels close to Ellie, who she feels understands her better. She decides to stay longer and perhaps try to heal from her disturbing mental state. On the second night of Jenna's stay, she heard breathing and scratching sounds coming from the wall again. Now there were stifled moans. Jenna was curious and peeled off the wallpaper, discovered hidden panels, and saw that a woman was hidden there. Jenna panicked and tried to call Jevin to alert the police. But Jenna doesn't realize that he had already been victimized by Ellie and Sam. His phone was in Ellie's possession, and she was afraid that Jenna had found out the secret of the old couple's house. Jenna tried to escape but was caught and injected with a drug that left her temporarily paralyzed. During Jenna's paralysis, she heard from Ellie and Sam that their daughters and grandchildren had been the first victims. Their eyes and tongues were removed. The others' victims had their eyes sewn shut and their tongues removed. Gavin had also been a victim. It turned out that their first night at the inn hadn't been a nightmare. It had all been real. Jevin had just gotten to his room before he was drugged and made a victim, then placed on the floor by Sem. Just as Jenna's eyes are about to be stitched up, the old man who has been following her comes to the inn. His name is Balsam, and he turns out to be the father of Jenna's ex-boyfriend. While Ellie is distracting Balsam and trying to drug him with spiked tea, Sam appears and hits Balsam with a crowbar. The effect of the drugs on Jenna start to wear off. She tries to escape by climbing into Balsam's car, hiding in the trunk while Ellie and Sam unknowingly take her to the mine to create a suicide scenario by dropping the car off a cliff. The car went over the cliff with Jenna inside. She was likely killed in the crash. The story then shifts to Miles. It tells the story of Mary, who is approached by a psychic named Simon, who believes he can communicate with her dead son, Miles. Mary's encounter with Simon was rather unique. Simon sent her a video recorded on a tablet that recorded a man standing naked in a white room, until the room was eventually covered in writing made with his own blood. When Mary launched her latest book in memory of Miles, a woman asked if she wanted to communicate with Miles. Mary was speechless. She recalled her last moments with Miles, who was lying in the hospital with leukemia. After Miles died, Mary's life changed drastically. She seemed to merely go through the motions each day because she no longer had the will to live. Until Simon met her in Mary's office on campus. Simon offered her to communicate with the dead, with Miles. Mary initially refused. She didn't believe in that kind of thing, until Simon said that Miles sent him to meet Mary. Actually, there is still a skeptical side in Mary, but she really wants to talk to Miles and thinks maybe this will be a useful experiment for her work. Mary made Simon the object of her experiment to see if humans could indeed communicate with the dead. When the experiment took place, Simon became the medium for the communication. He was placed naked in an empty, all-white room. When the communication process occurs, the room becomes pitch black and disturbing noises are heard. Communication only stopped when Simon was thrown into the mirror and the electricity in the room turned back on. The room that was originally white is now full of writing made by blood. Mary checks on Simon and finds, "I'm not sleeping, Mommy," written on one of the walls. This shows that Miles is really there. After the incident, Simon was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. Mary urges him to tell her what really happened, but Simon refuses because Mary is not ready. A few days later, Mary and Simon went to Miles' grave. Simon says that Miles is not at his grave. He shows her where Miles truly is, back at her house. Miles was actually at his own home because he didn't want to be far from Mary. Simon managed to convince Mary. They became a couple, built a foundation, and attracted scientists to become their donors. Mary felt happy at that time, convinced that she could remain close to Miles, with Simon acting as a bridge for their communication. But that happiness didn't last long. Mary discovered that Simon was having an affair with one of her students, and learned that Simon had faked all the experiments because he had learned everything about Miles through Mary's ex-husband. The events of the experiments in the laboratory have also been organized by Simon. Everything had been meticulously planned, as if a ghost was behind it all. But Simon said no. He planned the whole thing, and Mary was fooled by it. Mary was very angry at Simon, who was drunk. She tried to beat Simon, but he was much bigger than her. Her punches meant nothing. Mary was disappointed and sad, and decided to go to Miles' room. There, for the first time, she truly saw her son, the figure she had missed so deeply. Then the next day, when Simon was sober, he apologized and said he would leave. But strangely, Mary held back. She said she would continue everything because she knew now that her son was really with her. At a fundraising event for the foundation, Mary's plan to repeat the experiment with Simon finally succeeded. Simon had no idea what was going to happen, as it was beyond anything he expected. When Mary, Simon, and the donors went up to Miles' room, she undressed Simon and whispered, "You're making them very angry." Then Mary went out and locked the door. At that time, ghostly figures began to appear. Simon initially only saw the figure of Miles, but then other figures appeared and scratched their stories on Simon's body until the body was covered in incision marks. When Mary opened the door to her son's room, Simon was already dying because he had lost a lot of blood. On one of the incisions on Simon's body was the story of Bennett, who was searching for a way to reach Raven Moon. He and his partner had stopped at the cafe where Jenna had ordered coffee without paying for it. They even almost hit Jenna when their car was heading towards the Raven Moon area, the place where Mary and Simon were experimenting. The town is now a haunted ghost town. Their car suddenly shuts down after the apparition of a woman passes by. Bennett's colleague Steve suddenly followed the woman who called him. Bennett, who had just finished checking the car engine, chased after him. They both entered the abandoned church. Steve pointed the gun at his chin. He said that his mother was waiting for him to come. Bennett then tried to stop him from killing himself. But it seemed impossible because Steve immediately pressed the trigger and blew his own head off. Bennett continued his search on his own. He was almost hit by his car when it started up on its own and accelerated towards him. Bennett managed to avoid it. He then went to the house belonging to Miles, which was the only house with electricity while the rest were dark. It was like any other house, abandoned and covered in a layer of dust, but still very neat, organized, as if someone had always taken care of it. The further Ben explored the house, he began to hear the sound of a woman laughing, and it was that sound which guided him to Miles's room. There he met Mary, who was quite old. Her hair was almost all white. Simon was still alive, even though his body was covered in incisions from the story. The spirits had chosen him to be a medium. Mary said that Bennett's story would end there because his name had been engraved on Simon's body. Bennett didn't believe her at first, but a swarm of rats soon attacked him. He had no idea that it was just his hallucination, and when he came to, Bennett had stabbed himself. Still alive, he made his way back to town and arrived at Ellie and Sam's inn. He found Jevin being dragged into the barn. When Bennett realized that something was wrong, he entered the wrong house belonging to two psychopaths. Ellie soon kills Bennett. His corpse will later be seen by Jenna as she tries to escape from Ellie and Sam in their house. Sometime later, Jenna, who is still alive after the fatal accident, is now lying in the hospital. Her parents confront the police to confirm that the car crash into the mine shaft wasn't an accident, but a suicide pact. Jenna returned to her home after she had somewhat recovered. She had changed a lot, quieter than before. Her memories were a little foggy. But when she looks at her old pictures, Jenna remembered that she was the reason her boyfriend took his own life. They had planned to die together. But after Tony jumped off the roof of a building, Jenna never had the chance to go through with it. She burst into tears. The next day, she returned to Ellie and Sam's house to become another of their victims. Her eyes and ears were stitched shut, and she was laid out on the floor, just as planned. No one knew why Jenna seemed so content with her choice this time. Maybe it was because she would finally be free from the haunting voices. The entire story seemed to be etched onto Simon's body and endlessly recited by Mary, who remained in the dead town of Ravenman. Books of Blood is an amazing anthology horror story. The idea is original and really delivers intensity, suspense, and complex horror. The story begins with a neat strategy to keep the audience intrigued until the last minute. 3 stories are combined that turn out to be related to each other. I was really amazed by it, and I think Books of Blood deserves to be one of my favorite horror movies for those of you who like slasher and horror mysteries combined into a perfect story. Even for those of you who are really scared of horror movies, Books of Blood can still be enjoyed well from the mystery element. So, what do you think about this movie? If you like it, please like and comment in this video, and subscribe so you don't miss any video from ALO Recaps. See you in next video.